Hey guys, this is Darius Dragon Jesus Vita here for PokerVIP. I'm making the fourth installment in my 100 No Limit Snap series on 888. If you haven't checked out the previous ones, I recommend you guys do so. But if you have, let's get on with it. As usual, we're going to play live play, sit in right here real quick and get the action going. So we actually start out five-handed with a raise from middle position, and that's just going to be 3-bet with my suited ace. This is actually a pretty nice flop. We got top pair, but this is going to be it's actually probably going to be the worst top pair that I ever flop here, so we're definitely going to try to pot control. I mean, they're, technically worse, like, ace deuce, but that's not really going to come into the picture. Wonderful, wonderful turn. We're going to call. And a complete blank of a river. I do think he can have some better hands, and he'll be unlikely to check call with too much worse here. It's also a spot where I could be getting check raised, so I think a check back will be prudent here. Okay, all right, chop it up. Ace jack on the right, we flop very well, top pair jacks. I'm just going to bet for value. On this queen, I don't think I can often go for 3 streets anymore, but I think a second barrel is still going to do pretty well. We're going to get value out of draws and worse jack X as well. And the 7's a fine river card, but I am going to check this back. I don't know if we get 3 streets from hands like jack 10. And we definitely don't get 3 streets from a flush draw. He leads. This is mildly annoying because I don't think this is often a bluff, but for that sizing, it doesn't actually have to be a bluff all that often to make the call profitable. This could be a blocker bet with a worse hand than ace jack as well. But then again, it could be the nuts. I don't think we're ever folding for this price, though I'm not incredibly happy about it. And that's wonderful. We get the bluff once in a while. Pocket 7s, I raised on the button, and big blind leads into me. I think folding a pair to this size of bet when led into often isn't going to be the best play. So I'm going to make the float on the flop, though. Once again, it's a spot I'm not incredibly happy about it. If he continues showing aggression, I will likely have to fold, and I actually am going to fold this turn. It's also a hand that very rarely improves. I think if he had bet larger on the flop, we can just dump it there. It's always nice to see a limper, Mr. Green Thumb 77. Hopefully we get a little action here. And jack 9, although not a crazy good hand, against a min raise, we are going to be defending quite wide. Ooh, limper re-raise. Okay. Interesting. I guess we'll see a flop. I don't really want to jam here with 9s for, what would this be, 70 big blinds total. The 2 overcards on this board are slightly bad, well, because they're overcards, but they also give a lot of his barreling hands just quite a bit of equity. Any 2 overcard hand has at least a gutter, potentially an open ender, and potentially some sort of combo draw. So his bluffs are going to be very effective against my weaker hands here, and I think I'm okay just folding on the flop. We have a lot of short stacked players in the pool today. That's awesome, guys. And once again, I'm not going to be folding too often to the min raises. On this board with the 6-8, I'm not going to take a bluff though. We're going to go for the check. and this is essentially a spot I give up, mainly because even if this guy has a fairly wide range, it's still going to connect with the top end of this board fairly often. So I don't know how much fold equity I have with one barrel there, and I don't really know enough about the guy to just blindly two barrel into him when he checks back the flop. Especially when he has the shorter stack there. I tend to bluff a little less in those types of situations. I'm actually going to go for a flat with the 10-8. The price is fairly good, and I don't want to raise to 8 or 9 big blinds when button only has 20 and I have 10 high. I think that's just going to get all my chips in a lot with 10 high, and I get squeezed by big blind. I don't expect him to be doing this super light for the same reason that I didn't do a super light. I think this is a fold for me now, though I am curious to see what he shows up with, and in a minute or two I think I'm going to look that one up. In fact, let's even bring that up off screen here. Looks like he just took it down with the flop c-bet, so we're never going to know. Mentalist decides to go for a check back, and even though I have an ace high here, I think it's an okay spot to start betting. On this run out, unless he turned a jack, I think I'll be able to win it quite often. And I'm going to take an ace-5, which is not a hand I always raise, but I'm going to raise it because this pink little note that I have on players, that's the note that I give to players who are a little bit too tight. You know, the ones who are playing 19, 18, 17. In fact, I even have one on a player in this pool. I don't think he's playing today, but who plays 14% VPIP, which is just insanely tight. And if he's not going to give me a hard time on the button, then I think opening up in the cutoff is going to be the right call. Not much going on with the 10-6. We've got a free flop. I think raising pre-flop when he only has 10 big blinds, once again with 10 high, this is actually that same player, isn't going to be super effective. I think this is just a spot I'm not going to contest too much. Oh, and there's a couple beautiful hands. Hopefully we get a little bit of action with the aces. We get 3-bet. I am going to be 4-betting this nearly every time to either 21 or 22. I don't feel super strongly between those two sizes. I'm actually going to go with 22 this time. Make it a little more difficult for him to flat me in position and make him want to play more shove fold poker by that slightest bit. Of course, we get in the crazy cooler situation. He binks turn, we do not get there on the river. It's going to happen once in a while. It's unfortunate, but well, we lose. Let's try to get it back. Okay, so second hand in a row, I get 3-bet. I think ace queen's going to do okay as a call here. I definitely don't want to 4-bet and get shoved on. I think that's a little bit of a waste of the ace queen unless I think this guy's pretty crazy. Wow, that's a flop. Okay, 888 is going to make up for that aces versus kings loss with a royal flush. I think with the draw this strong, you can't really go wrong. On this texture, I might want to fast play some of my value hands, so I think check raising, especially with a strong draw, is going to be pretty good. We're going to go up to, I think like 28, 29 here is just going to be fine. And that just sets up a turn jam. Could even go slightly smaller there. 10's not great for me. It does take away from some of my value combos. It also means I'm drawing to 1 out, potentially, but I do think shoving is still going to be the best play. Oh, that's rude. That's rude. All right, his backdoor straight, your backdoor flush gets there, and guys, we are off to a rough start. Queen 9 against the type player is definitely going to be a raise. Flop a pair of 9s, and lately I have been thinking I can go either way here a little bit more, but I am going to just start with the check. Our hand does need protection from a wide variety of draws and overcards. But that being said, none of those hands are really going to be folding to a c-bet anyways. The ace should be pretty good for my range. He checks back, which is awesome. Also, if you take a look to the right, we got aces again. Hopefully this works out a little bit better. I think a bet with Queen 9 once I hit trips is in order. I think a bigger bet is going to be better because I'm not really going to be betting too many marginal strength hands here. So when we're more polarized, we go bigger. What to do with the aces? I'm going to start off with just a half pot c-bet. And just a little bit of a buy-in glitch there. Nothing to worry about, guys. They do not want me to win with aces. I do think this has to be a turn check. Though there aren't a crazy amount of 9s that villain should have in his range. So it's not quite as dangerous as it looks. On the river, I also block spades. That being said, top pair is now 3 of a kind, so I lose to any jack as well as any full house or straight. I do think this is a check. It'll sometimes go check, check. Actually, anytime it goes check, check, I should win, which is great. And he can still potentially have hands that I am beating. River's mildly annoying. Since I don't really know anything about this player, other than, is this the guy? I missed my royal flush against him. I don't think I fold to this price. He can have hands like ace queen, ace king going for the river bluff. But once again, it's a spot where I'm getting really good odds. He doesn't have to bluff that often, and I don't actually expect him to bluff often, but I do expect him to bluff enough. All right, guys, we're going to keep getting these big pairs, and we're going to keep trying. Pocket King's going in for the 3-bet as well. Once again, a really nice flop. I'm going to go slightly bigger on this board. Am I? I mean, I guess we can just go 11. We did start about 115 deep. So it's going to require slightly bigger bets on each street to get all the money in, which is something that I do want to do. I think ace 8 is a fine check on this board, and oh my god, guys. Okay, right. We're going to keep smacking our head against this wall. We're going to keep trying. Got a limp from all in to win. Flop top set. This is a fairly coordinated board. So even though I do block a lot of aces, I think we still often get continued with on this board. I'm just going to start it off with a fairly small bet of 5 there. We get called. That's great. Jack 10 gets there. We still have the nuts against everything else. And he decides to lead. That's actually interesting. If he does have Jack 10 here, then I do think that I'm stacking off and we're going to either lose or suck out. But I don't really see him lead folding this turn too much. And because the board is really coordinated, I do think I want to raise. Like, he can have some 2-pair, he can have king-queen, he can have some like pair plus draws. We're going to make a bit of an awkward raise size because it's going to leave not too much money behind on the river. But I think putting in extra money while the board is a bit wet is a good idea. And that's not what I expected to see. If he shoves there, but I guess I'll take it. All right, guys, we got a little bit going in the right direction. I'm not happy about this, but when I get led into for this small, I'm not folding a pair. Let's make a note on this guy. Just something he does post-flop. I think folding the turn is fine. Jack deuces is going to be one of the 3 bets that I use blind versus blind there. It looks like it works out. I got another 3-bet bluff that I'm going for with the queen 3. On this board, queen 3 will definitely be very near the bottom of my range, so I think it's okay to give up with it. I don't really improve on anything other than a queen, and this is a mildly coordinated board that I don't expect to get too many folds on with a single bet. Once he checks back, I think it might be a good idea to just go bet. I don't represent all that much. Maybe we just go for a check turn, bet river line on quite a few rivers. I do think this 9 is going to be better for him than it is for me. Because it puts several 4 straights into his range, like anything with a 10, anything with an 8, like a 7, 8, 9, 8 even. I don't think my fold equity is crazy good on this turn. Though it might be good if I just go bet. Why are you not topping me off 8 at 8? Okay, there we go. Top me off. Oh, wow, that is nice. So I have a choice between either going very small here or very large. And because I'm greedy, I think this time I'm going to be going very large. I think that extra size in my c-bet won't really make too much of a difference to his calling range. The other option is just go about a 3rd pot there and do that with basically everything. And that puts him in a little bit of a tough spot with a lot of his very mediocre hands on that board, and it'll let my bluffs be quite effective. Facing the min raise from Davey, I am just going to go for a flat with the 6s. I have seen Davey limp before, so I do expect him to be a weaker player. When I get 4-bet with the ace 10, I don't think calling is an option. Shoving seems pretty bad as well, so we're going to go for the fold. And I think checking back with the 6s is often just going to be fairly nice. And we'll be folding the turn, even though I have the heart there. I think against 2 players who are, of course, likely to have at least 1 heart as well, and potentially some pairs. When there's 2 of them putting in action, I don't think that the call is going to be all that profitable. going to start off with a smallish bet with the ace-9. I do think that checking back is going to be good too, but on this board I should have a bit of an advantage, and it's also one that he should find it quite difficult to continue on. King-Queen will also start with a bet, continue on high cards and clubs. Anything that's low and connecting with this board, like that 5, is going to be pretty poor for my range in general. I guess we're both going to have a lot of the low pairs and some of the low suited connectors, but because his range is potentially tighter than mine, it means those hands are going to show up more often, while I'm going to show up with a lot more, offsuit broadways, overpair type hands, which of course will hate that turn with a passion. I think Jack 10's pretty easy to defend in the big blind. Flopping a pair of 10s, that does mean I'm very likely seeing a turn. Let's see what he does. And starts out with a fairly standard bet of 4 into 618. I think that's fine. If he does throw in the second barrel on this board, I do think I can fold. He decides to check back. I think ace-jack often bets turn, so unless he has king-queen that doesn't include 2 clubs, we're doing quite well. I guess he can also have pocket jacks. I'm going to go with the smaller bet on this river, because I expect his range to be on the weak side. I think we'll just get a lot of folds if I bet 10 or 11 or higher. I think with that sizing, we even get calls from something like a queen-jack, which is of course desirable. So we get kings for the 100th time. No action this time though. No complaints, guys. No complaints at all. So get raised by Call Me Dolly, and Call Me Dolly is one of the tighter players I have noted. Kings are still going to be a 4-bet here, because even against a tight range, kings are going to do quite fine. I'm going to go up to 22 out of position. I think this is a board that I'm often going to want to check with a lot of my range, especially anything that missed, because this is going to do okay for him. So I'm just going to start off with a check with the kings, but if he bets, I am just going to make him put the rest of the money in. With 43 in the pot and $93 stacks, it's slow playing doesn't really make a lot of sense here. And that's going in. If he has ace or jack, then that sucks, but that is an excellent result. And hey, we hold. All right, getting that money back. Let's start off with the blind versus blind raise with king 7. Get 3-bet. I don't really know anything about this guy's pre-flop tendencies. King 7 could potentially be a 4-bet bluff, but I don't think I'm going to use it this time. Naturally, it's too weak to call, and the king blocker does block several of his value hands quite effectively. I think versus the middle position limp, Queen 8 is just going to be a check. Once he checks back this board, I think I'm going to bet a couple times. I don't expect too many players to go for the limp check back with top pair unless he's just really passive. And I'm going to go with a fairly large bet on the river because I think this is one that has the potential to get a jack to fold. Whether or not he folds a jack is a little bit player dependent, and if this guy's calling with sixes, then yeah, I think it's safe to say we're not getting a jack to fold. Two pair on the turn against Davey. I'm actually going to go for a check raise because I think when he checks back this board, he can potentially have a lot of ace highs, and those will be likely to bet. That whiffs, unfortunately, so I am just going to go for the value bet. In this small of a pot, I don't think sizing matters all that much. I don't know if his calling range is going to change too much between $2 and $3.50, so we're just going to very happily bet for value. It's a bit of an ugly spot with the king-9. I think without a diamond and without a real strong draw, we're just going to fold to the small lead. Okay, looks like we might have to wait a moment here for the new hands. I'm curious to see how many people are in the pool right now. It's getting a little low, but the games should still keep going for a bit. It's actually about 9 in the evening for me right now, and this is close to when games die down on a lot of sites, actually, both 888 and PokerStars. So, not knowing anything about this guy, I'm just going to take my free flop with the 9-5. Flop not even close. Might be able to just throw in a min bet here and get some folds once in a while, and looks like that's the case. I do think it's quite often a tell of hand strength when players limp and then fail to lead the flop. They might have some mediocre hands, but I do think that strong hands, especially hands like top pair, are just going to be out of the question, because most players don't really like to settle for small pots with those types of hands. Here we go, deuce 3, no thanks. I guess I used up all my aces and kings early in the video, so we're going to get all the deuce 3, deuce 4s now. The 7-5 offsuits in middle position are not going to be played either. Oh, come on. I was just joking, man. I was just joking. Okay, we have a jack 9. That's just going to start out with a raise. And I mean, deuce 3 does have to be a fold. As much as I want to play it, we're trying to be profitable here. I'm gonna be real disappointed if this snap pool just dies down in the middle of a video. We're getting the stellar hands, both deuce 7 offsuits. King 8's can be a raise on the button. I think that's fine. We will be folding it to a 3-bet if that's something that Yeti Poker decides to do. It's a very dry board with the King 8. We can start off with either half pot or third pot here. I think I'm going to go with the third pot option. We're going to go for 210. It means I'm going to have to barrel a lot of turns, but I think I'm okay with that. So Yeti Poker raises, and even when I do this with a lot of my range, I am still going to have a ton of hands to continue against this. So I'm going to fold, but make a little bit of a mental note there that he raises against the small bet, because if that's something that he just reacts adversely to, then I think we could take advantage of it quite easily. King Queen on, or King Jack on the coordinated board is just going to start off with the bigger bet. We're going to go for 650 into 855. $10-5 won't typically be a 3-bet bluff, but we'll see how this goes. I will be defending it against a min raise from small blind, because anytime we get the min raise and we're in position, we're getting excellent odds. I know there's some people out there who actually defend any 2 cards. I'm not one of those. I'm not quite that loose, but it is a spot you can defend very, very wide. Same goes for the Jack 6 over here. Not typically a hand I'm going to be 3-bet bluffing, and we defend against the min raise but fold versus the 3x. I'm going to be 3-betting my pocket 8s. We get into a mildly awkward spot if we're 4-bet here, because the stack depth is 120 blinds deep. And luckily that doesn't happen. We're going to still keep testing out these small bets. Pocket 3s, I think that's fine. We'll see if this guy decides to throw in the check raise like his friend. He does not. I'm actually going to bet the 3s again, or am I? I think it's actually close, because his range is going to be a lot wider than if I had made a larger bet. I think I could check this back. I mean, check back is definitely going to be profitable. And we'll check back expecting to win against ace and king high here. The fact that he shows up with ace queen in the big blind, not 3-betting pre-flop, I think is pretty interesting. I don't think this river on the left is going to be bluffed extremely often unless he has some sort of legitimate bluff like a heart draw on the turn. That doesn't actually matter, though. I do think that's a psychological thing that people do. Like, he'll follow through with his missed Jack 10 heart draw here, but he won't. A lot of people won't stab with just some random, maybe Queen 10 that they had. I'm actually curious to see if anybody else thinks that as well. That's something I've noticed quite a bit. So Mentalist, who is a reg, or at least I suspect him of being a reg, decides to throw in the cold 4-bet. And that actually puts me in a bit of an awkward spot where I think I'm going to fold. Gary just opens to 6. What is going on here? Okay, I'm not going to be defending against the 6x raise. That would be crazy. But let's get dealt some aces and hope it happens one more time. Out of position, we're just going to go up to 10 with the aces, and wow, okay. Everybody's turning up the aggression. Let's hope it happens here too. It looks like we get the fold with the aces. That's too bad. Three, four suited can be a raise. 10-8 offsuit, I think it would be close, but let's go for it. So we get a raise in the cutoff from the tight player. I do think we can defend ace-6 suited here. It's not exactly the flop I'm looking for. I think check raising that flop would be a little optimistic, so let's just get rid of our hand. Jack-9 flops okay. I am going to want to bet some jacks here, but I think that this one's going to go for the check. My kicker is fairly weak, and because we're blind versus blind, where there's potentially a lot of jacks in play, that could be significant. We get a very, very nice turn. I don't think leading turn will be all that good. Check raising seems like it'll be overplaying my hand. He decides to go for the second bet, and he goes large, which he can definitely do with a strong range. And it's something that'll put me in a tough spot with a lot of my range. For example, if I had Jack-9 of clubs here, I very often just have to fold that type of hand. So big bet is very, very nice on his part. I'm seeing this player do some nice things. Let's see if he decides to throw in the third barrel. And he does not. Looks like we're going to win it. Right on. And that's also a spot where I had, I guess, you know, one of the hands that will call turn and fold river. Though if I'm going for a check call there, it's quite likely that I'm calling river because a lot of my range will actually be top pair. Queen 4, no thanks. 7-3, deuce 3, get out of here. So we got Ben Wallace making a fairly sizable raise, 3.5. We're going to go up to 10. He snap calls, that's always nice. And guys, I don't think I can dream of a better flop. Now he leads into me. I don't think raising will never be bad here, but I think calling is going to be the superior play. We're going to let him bluff off. I'm not afraid of clubs. I'm not afraid of overcards. Except for maybe the king, but I'm not that afraid of kings, guys. And yeah, call the overbet on the turn. See how we do. He's got ace-9 offsuit. Lovely. Games are soft, ladies and gentlemen. With the tight player on the button, we're going to open up ace-7. Ace-10 can be a 3-bet here. I think I'm going to elect to flat it. He decides to start with a bet, and I think calling here is pretty much mandatory. I do have a fairly strong ace-high and some backdoor draws. Call Me Dolly makes an interesting, slightly larger than normal raise. I'm curious about that. When I get checked to on this turn, I'm actually going to bet large and follow up on the river. I think it'll be rare that queens check on this turn, though it is possible, and I don't think flushes check basically ever, unless they're going for a check raise. And if they're going for a check raise, I'll of course find that out before I have the opportunity to barrel the river. Ooh, interesting. We got a 3-bet and a cold call. I'm going to go with the 4-bet. I'm never entirely sure what to do for sizing here. Like my typical would be like 22 to 23, but we want to add some for the second caller. So I think I'm going to go to 27. And that is a flop. So I check back ace-8 and improve on the turn against Call Me Dolly. It is a spot where I am going to call. I don't have too much liberty raising this river as a bluff because he can just reshove since I rarely have the flush. So I do think I'm going to fold to that second barrel when one or more of the draws came in. And now I'm just going to go bet small with my pocket kings until all the money's in. I did slow play the flop. I think with the top set on this board, that is going to be quite an effective play. Though, once he checks turn to me, I don't think we really want to give too many free rivers. And checking back turn also doesn't really let me get all the money in on the river unless I decide to overbet or he suddenly decides to lead and I can then raise him. I think Queen 6 is close here. I'm going to go for the call. I don't actually know anything about this player other than the fact that they just cold called my 3-bet and called the 4-bet. So there's potential for them to be a little splashier than normal. Once again, just deciding to go with the large sizing on the ace-high board where I'm going to have a range advantage. Just so happens, I did have an excellent hand. But it's something I should be doing with a lot of value hands and a lot of bluffs as well. And we can defend King 9 quite happily. Not really connecting with the board at all. These spots are just going to be folds. Now, since we're playing Snap and the Snap games don't actually have Huzzle Out, guys, I'm going to give you a pro tip here if you are playing the Snap games as well. When you're done your sessions or once a week or something like that, take a look at your poker tracker or your Hold'em manager and just explore in the database and see what players are doing, how tight the average player is, who seems to be a reg, who seems to, be a fish. And even though you don't have HUD at the tables, I think that'll often just give you a nice advantage over the other players who don't put that much work in. I think ace-queen is going to do well enough to go for a call once. And we get a bet on the river after I spike a queen. Of course, I do expect my hand to be good here very often. The question is, can I get extra value with a raise? And that does seem thin since I have a 1-pair hand and my kicker isn't even great. So I am just going to go with the flat, and looks like it was a good decision. With ace-queen high, I'm actually just going to attempt to check down. On the left, I do think I get to showdown against some ace-10s and ace-jacks, definitely, and potentially some worse ones as well. Though I do think that if I didn't have showdown value, bluffing this river is going to be quite effective. I don't expect him to check back a king or a flush draw on the turn, so he should be very capped. Throwing in a check raise on this river does seem kind of attractive, but I don't think my line will really make sense, and if he's a thinking player, then that's not going to work out great for me. He also did bet quite large, which doesn't really make sense for his range, but it does make me lean towards him having stronger hands in general, or at least being more polarized in general, and therefore my raise won't be quite as effective as it would if he had a bunch of medium strength hands attempting to go for value with something like, let's say, pocket tens on the King X board. Mentalist raise is so large here, I'm actually going to fold ace 10. I don't think it's a spot I fold ace jack, but ace 10 is fairly weak in general. And you know what, guys? We're waiting for the hands here. I think this might be a good time to wrap up the video. We're going to go sit on next hand after we play these two. I thought he limped here, but no, that's not the case. I still am going to 3-bet my ace 10. We're just going to fold the queen 3. All right, last hand of the session, guys. We're just going to take it down pre-flop. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys managed to get through that little bit of slow action in the middle and get all the way to the end here. As usual, if you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, leave them in the box below the video. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. And I guess I'll sign off here, guys. This has been Darius Komodo Dragon Jesus Vita for PokerVIP. Thanks for watching.